is that it has to be radically affordable because the markets that we're looking at, people are extremely poor. So that's where we see both an opportunity for impact as well as an opportunity to make money. And I think a big difference in this and sort of the innovation in this field of where it's going is that we are a for-profit fund. We expect to make money. Expect to make money both for the investors and for myself and for my employees. So that's kind of a higher hurdle for us because we're not only looking for organizations, we're not only looking for companies that are going to actually do good, but we're looking for ones that are going to actually have a scale that would have a return, a scale that's significant enough to produce a return for an investor, which is a pretty high hurdle. And at this point, it's still somewhat philanthropic in the sense that investors that are doing this purely speculative because no one knows if it's actually going to work. And that's not just our fund, but that's the entire industry of investing in these companies. We haven't seen enough what they call exits, so companies being sold or going public so that we can get a return on our investment. We haven't seen enough of that yet to know whether or not it will work.
So what was involved in starting this? How long have you been doing it?
Well, the fund officially launched January 1. But I started the company this January 1. I started the company a year and a half ago. So you can tell kind of from just that count, it takes a while to get something like that started. So you have to have some resources and some willingness to continue to eat pizza and ramen noodles for a while. That's kind of what it took.
So if you could give students advice, if somebody wanted to do what you're doing, what would you say they should be doing to kind of prepare
to really reach people? It's still, I think anything you can learn finance-wise is important. Any kind of international work that you can do. I could never do what I'm doing right now if I didn't have exposure to these markets. I think the biggest one is finance. I can usually find someone who can run numbers for me, but it's also really, really difficult. But it's even more difficult to find someone who actually understands what's going on in the market, yet can understand numbers. So that's kind of one of the key things. Going on one of Shaughnessy's trips, I think, would be a great way of getting that experience of seeing what's on the ground. Even if you come from a foreign country, like my family does, I lived in Bolivia for a very long time, it doesn't really matter because you're probably from a different socioeconomic status. So you have to kind of go back and open your eyes and say, what are the real needs there? What do people really want? And will they really pay for it? Which is kind of the trick to what we're doing.
Would you mind sharing a little bit about sort of your path and how you got to where you are now? Like, what were some of the experiences, career-wise and educational, that kind of led you to where you are right now?
Sure. It's not the most traditional path, and I wouldn't recommend it for anyone. So I'll just get that out there. I actually did English. I guess to some extent it can be inspiring if you're coming to this late in the game. I did an English degree undergrad, and so found myself without anything to do afterwards. And the good thing about, I guess, liberal arts degrees is, for the most part, is that you can kind of find, you can go do anything really afterwards. But it took a long time to find work. I took advantage. I went to China. I taught English in China for a year. So I got exposure to a new culture and a different market. So that was part of it, which was really nice. And then I came back and thought about law school and a couple other things, but really didn't find a niche of working. Writing wasn't exactly paying the bills. So I ended up just through kind of hard times after 9/11, living in New York City. There was not a lot of jobs. Took what you could get. I ended up in insurance. And I realized I didn't love the work I was doing, didn't love insurance, but I did like numbers. I liked financial models. Actually, more importantly, I really liked to understand how businesses work. I found myself kind of always going into the director's office and being like, if we just did this way, it would work better. And of course, they were like, shut up, go back to your desk. And so I started taking night classes. I took night classes largely in economics and statistics, just kind of learning, sort of doing a review of what I should have done when I was an undergrad and didn't, because I avoided any hard classes. So I took the night classes, and that took a long time, and then I ended up going to, and then I left my job in insurance. I kept working on Wall Street, and I just could not stand it, so I left, and I got a job at Accion. It was largely because of the night classes that I actually sort of had the skill set to be able to do that, and I got a job at Accion, which is a large microfinance lender. I worked for the New York office, so we were lending to businesses inside New York City. It's a not-for-profit organization, so we had really, really minimum resources. My job was to go out there, find people who wanted a loan, who could benefit from a loan, and then figure out what they needed to do in order to qualify for that loan. And once we lent them the money, I would go back and make sure that they benefited from the loan and that they could repay the loan. So that was my job, and I learned, again, kind of back and forth, that this was exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with entrepreneurs. I wanted to see how businesses worked, and I wanted to have that kind of ongoing relationship with them. So I went to graduate school, and I didn't do the traditional thing, I think, which was to go get an MBA. I went into urban planning. My big focus in urban planning was I wanted to study economic development, in particular towards entrepreneurship. One of the things I saw at Exxon was that it was very difficult to have a big impact as a single organization. So I was trying to look if there was some way to do systemic change through public policy, and that was my goal. When I finished my graduate school, I started working in consulting and realized that, yes, this is the route that you can go through policy, and it takes a very, very long time. And for the most part, it's fairly boring. So I decided I'm going back into lending money. And what I ended up doing instead of going into lending money was I went into investing money. So that kind of had the best of both worlds, because as an investor, as an equity investor, you're looking for companies that are going to scale really, really quickly, really big. So you're looking for the very, very rare company, probably somewhere around maybe 5% or less of companies that are actually going to really be able to scale enormously. But if you can find those and you can invest in those and you can support those and they actually do scale, the impact that they have is almost equal to the sort of policy aspect, and it's much quicker. So I went into equity investments. I got lucky. There was an equity investment firm that had a microfinance background in Atlanta called Grey Ghost. So I got in there via my microfinance background. And while I was there, I just kind of kept working and prodding until I got into the equity side. And I eventually helped them start a small fund, which is very similar to the fund that I start now. So when I did start my fund, I knew how to do it, which obviously helps a lot as well.
One last question. Do you ever have a need for co-op students, interns?
Yeah, absolutely. We do.
These people.
We have interns. We have 2 interns right now from Northeastern. Last year we did as well. Oh, and we have an intern group that's working on a special project for us as well, a research project sort of separately. But then we have 2 interns in the office every week. So I do always look for interns over the summer as well as during the semester. It's usually about 10 hours a week. Maybe next year we'll do a co-op. I haven't seen it yet.
Thank you. So we'll move to Alex. Tell us about how you started the Commonwealth Market.
Sure. So I'm a 09 grad, for those who missed it. I ended up with a degree in international affairs, but I started in chemical engineering and worked my way over through about 4 different majors. So probably not a traditional path either, but it was fun and I like the background now. I spent a lot of time on co-op and outside of co-op and traditional stuff at Northeastern, working in the nonprofit sector, helping to build organizations kind of from the structural side. So Peace Through Play, a campus organization here that works with youth K-8 to help them develop peacemaking skills, problem-solving skills. Worked on that. And yeah, just spent a lot of time in the nonprofit sector, mainly working with youth, but also spending a lot of time working with college students across the U.S. And kind of from all of those experiences, the question that I kept coming back to was, what impact are we having? And not impact in the skewed sense of what it means today. It could mean, you have good financial ratios, you have great stories to tell, but what are the numbers that tell me that we changed somebody's life? And so I asked those questions quite a bit. So whether I was teaching a class or running a program, what is our impact? And I really struggled to find those answers, and so I dabbled in evaluation and whatnot. Asked a lot of folks who are the organizations I was working with, working for, and there was not a lot of good answers to what impact are we creating, and what difference does that mean? I think that making a difference piece of things.